Let's start by taking the wheel off. 19mm socket, take off all 5 of your lug nuts. And remove the wheel. Next, I want to take this drum off. It's pretty stuck on here, so I sprayed some rust penetrant around the studs and around the hub here. I'm going to take 2 8x125 bolts, and you can try hammering it. I've already tried, it's not coming off. So what I'm going to do with these is drive the bolts in, press up against the hub surface, and that will actually pull the drum off. So I'm going to thread those on. As you can see, it's working. There we go. Okay, now take the drum, slide it right off. So to remove the wheel bearing, you have 4 E14 bolts. Those are inverted Torx. Break these free. Once it's broken free, I'm just going to take it all the way out. Okay, there's your first one. Do the same to all the rest. There it is. That's your last bolt. One last thing before we hammer the wheel bearing off is disconnecting this ABS sensor. I'm going to grab the connector with needle nose pliers, pull it right off. You can just let it hang over here. Now let's get the wheel bearing out. Take a hammer, watch out for your brake shoes. Don't hit those, of course, and try to hammer the wheel bearing left, right, up, down, basically just unwedge it and walk it out. Now your backing plate with the brakes can pull away, and that's good because you want to clean up the surface a little bit. This is not really bad, but I do have some rust buildup here. And then inside of this ridge here, I want to clean up. That way the new wheel bearing can slide on easily with no restrictions. Let's get a rag, wipe things off. That way we can assess how much rust there is to clean up. Not a lot, but all this surface rust and debris that's in here will cause issues. So I'm just going to take a wire brush and just quickly scrape over, and then do the same to this surface and this one over here. Again, you want everything to mount flat. You don't want any sort of vibrations or driving issues afterwards. That feels much smoother already, so that's perfect. Brush this off a little bit here. And the inside of the ridge as much as you can. I'm going to apply some anti-seize to this inside ridge here. That way, hopefully in the future, the wheel bearing doesn't get stuck again if it needs to be removed. You don't need a lot. And a little bit to this outer surface. That'll prevent some rust building up on this exposed metal here. Let's put the backing plate back where it belongs. Then take your new bearing. And remember that the ABS sensor was on the side. Line it up, press it on, line up the bolt holes as best as you can. I cleaned up the threads on these bolts and applied some blue thread locker just like it had before. Let's start them on from the back. So now grab the bolt, I have it on an extension that'll help me guide it into place. And try to start it into the hole. Won't be easy, but with a little bit of wiggling, you can get it started. I did, perfect. I'm going to thread this on a few threads and then try to line up the other 3, and then we'll worry about tightening. But as long as they're all in, it's secure. Last one. The more bolts you put in, the easier it'll be to line the next ones up. Okay, they're all started. Let's snug them up in a cross pattern. That way the wheel bearing seats itself properly. There's one. Like I said, I'm going to go in a cross pattern. That way I can make sure that everything is seated properly on on all 4 corners. Okay, back over here. Now let's torque it. 81 foot-pounds for all 4 of these bolts. That's one. I'm going to go across to this one over here. Perfect. Go up to this one now. Okay, and finally this one on the bottom here. Apply some anti-seize to the surface of the hub. This will prevent rust from building up. It'll ensure that the drum doesn't seize on there like it did before. You don't need a lot. You actually definitely don't want a lot because then it'll fling out onto the braking surface. But just enough to cover it. That's good. You especially want it on this outer ridge and this inner ridge. That's where the drum actually sits. I'm putting it in the center just to hopefully prevent some rust. Perfect. Don't forget to plug in the ABS sensor. Make sure it clicks. Perfect. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all of your lug nuts, bottom them out, and torque them to 100 foot-pounds.